The greatest error my son's new wife ever committed was measuring me by my battered pickup and my threadbare gray suit. Standing in the center of her lavish wedding reception, she looked me dead in the eyes and ordered, "Leave. You do not belong here." Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead while smiling guests filled the ballroom and a live band played. She thought she had publicly shamed a powerless old man. What she failed to realize was that the elegant country club, the costly catering, and every worker serving that reception ultimately answered to me. I simply smiled, fastened my jacket, and answered quietly, "Very well, but I will not depart by myself." 5 minutes later, her flawless wedding dissolved into total disorder. My name is Daniel Carter. I am 72 years old, and I have spent my whole life convinced that honesty, hard work, and respect matter far more than money. My late wife Emily and I built our lives from nothing. We began with a small roadside diner, worked endless hours, and gradually turned it into a prosperous hospitality company. Even after we achieved financial success, we never altered our simple way of living. I continue to occupy the same modest house, drive the same aging truck, and wear practical clothing because I never believed wealth needed to be displayed. After Emily died, my son Ethan became my entire world, and I devoted everything I possessed to giving him the chances we ourselves never had while growing up. For years, I overlooked the warning signs. Ethan gradually grew obsessed with expensive lifestyles and the approval of wealthy people. Then he met Madison. She was charming on the surface, yet judged everyone by outward appearance. At the rehearsal dinner, she mocked my old truck, ridiculed my faded suit, and joked that I would spoil her elegant wedding photographs. Her bridesmaids laughed along with her, yet the deepest cut came from watching Ethan sit beside her without uttering a single word. My own son heard every insult and chose silence instead of defending me. What no one in that ballroom knew was that I had quietly paid for nearly everything surrounding them. A few weeks before the wedding, Ethan arrived at my house claiming he had lost most of his money and could no longer afford the celebration. Without hesitation, I transferred $80,000 to cover the venue, food, flowers, entertainment, and open bar. Instead of thanking me, he proudly told everyone he had financed the entire wedding himself through successful investments. I allowed him to take the credit because I believed protecting my son's pride mattered more than receiving recognition. I had no idea that my kindness would become the very reason they believed they could disrespect me without consequences. The morning of the wedding only confirmed what I had already begun to see. Madison greeted me with a forced smile, then casually informed me that I would be seated in the fourth row because my appearance did not match the elegant image she wanted her guests to remember. Before walking away, she handed me an envelope, clearly expecting another generous check. Instead, she found a single note that read, "Respect is earned, never purchased." She rolled her eyes, laughed, and whispered something to her bridesmaids. They all smiled, convinced they had embarrassed me one final time. As the reception began, I quietly remained at my table, enjoying the celebration without drawing attention. Madison eventually strode across the ballroom, stopped directly in front of me, and loudly declared that it was time for me to leave. She claimed I was making the wealthy guests uncomfortable and that Ethan no longer wanted me there. Hundreds of eyes turned toward us as the room suddenly fell silent. I slowly rose, straightened my old gray jacket, smiled calmly, and said, "All right, but I will not be leaving alone." Instead of heading toward the exit, I walked through the kitchen doors. Every employee immediately looked my way. I calmly thanked them for their hard work, then instructed the general manager to end all wedding services at once. Every staff member would receive full pay, but the reception was officially over. Within seconds, the live band stopped playing. Bartenders closed the bar, servers set down their trays, and chefs switched off the kitchen equipment. One by one, more than 40 employees removed their aprons and quietly followed me toward the ballroom entrance, leaving hundreds of confused guests staring in disbelief. Madison screamed for everyone to return, believing the staff had suddenly gone on strike. Ethan ran after me, demanding to know why every employee was obeying my orders. Before I could reply, the general manager stepped forward and calmly explained that the owner of the country club had decided to shut down the event. Ethan looked completely bewildered until the manager pointed directly at me and said, "Sir, we are simply following Mr. Daniel Carter's instructions." The color drained from both of their faces as they finally understood who I really was. The ballroom quickly descended into chaos. Guests complained about unfinished meals, unopened champagne, and a wedding reception that had ended before anyone expected. The luxurious celebration Madison had spent months showing off collapsed in a matter of minutes. Every lie Ethan had told about paying for the wedding was now beginning to unravel in front of his friends, her family, and every important guest they had tried so hard to impress. The following morning, Ethan and Madison stormed to my house, carrying legal papers and a copy of the venue's contract. They demanded that I pay the $50,000 cancellation penalty, insisting the disaster was my fault. Without raising my voice, I asked Ethan to read the final page of the agreement. His hands began to tremble as he reached the signature block. Printed beneath the title of Chief Executive Officer was my name. That was the moment everything finally made sense to them. I had never rented the venue, I owned it. The penalty they demanded was not money I owed, it was money they now owed my company for violating the contract. Every lie they had told, every insult they had thrown at me, and every ounce of disrespect had finally caught up with them. They stood frozen on my front porch, unable to find a single word. I quietly closed the door, not because I wanted revenge, but because I had finally accepted a painful truth. Money can build beautiful weddings, buy luxury vacations, and create the illusion of success, but it can never purchase respect or character. Those are earned through kindness, humility, and the way we treat people who can do nothing for us. That day I did not lose my son. I simply stopped protecting a man who had forgotten the values his mother and I spent a lifetime trying to teach him. Some lessons are expensive, and this one cost far more than money.